Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. What happens when months of polite reminders don't work? In this story, the answer's simple: a grandson, a pickup truck, and a very literal case of organ donors. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My family were organ donors, whether she wanted it or not. Way back in the early 2000s, my husband's grandmother borrowed an organ, the musical kind, not the medical kind, from a friend. She thought she might learn to play, but she never did. Instead, this hulking piece of furniture just sat there for years, gathering dust in her tiny home. And when I say tiny, I mean it. Her house was basically the width of a single-car garage. Space was already at a premium, so the organ ate up a corner like a freeloading relative who never leaves. Fast forward to the end of 2021. My husband's aunt, who owns the property Gran lived on and was also friends with the organ's actual owner, decided enough was enough. She reached out to the organ owner and told her it was time to take her instrument back. Silence. At the start of 2022, things got worse. Gran was diagnosed with what we grimly nicknamed cancer of the everything. It was a metastatic lung cancer that had spread everywhere. She opted out of chemo, and our priority became keeping her comfortable. To do that, we needed her lounge cleared out so we could set up a hospital bed. Her bedroom was far too cramped to manage her care properly. The organ had to go. Aunt reached out again and again. Each time, organ owner had a new excuse. I'll take it later this week. I don't have anyone to transport it. Can't you hold on to it just a bit longer? I have a potential buyer, so I need to wait. Classic stall tactics. Weeks went by and the organ sat there like an immovable object while we scrambled to make Gran's final days as comfortable as possible. In April, Gran's son and two grandsons flew in from England to spend time with her while she was still able to enjoy my company. While they were there, my husband's brother-in-law borrowed his dad's Backy pickup truck, and with the help of one of the cousins, they loaded that beast of an organ into the back. And here's the kicker. Organ owner lived around the corner, literally within walking distance, and had made one last attempt to get her to collect it herself. Crickets. So cousin and brother-in-law simply drove it over, knocked on her door, and when organ owner wasn't home, her daughter's boyfriend let them in and even helped unload it. Done and dusted, problem solved. Well, not for long. Cue the outraged messages. Organ owner went nuclear. How dare you drop this off without warning me? Don't you realize I have no space for it? This is so inconvenient for me. I didn't want it back right now, and you knew that. Aunt was devastated. She'd been doing her best under heartbreaking circumstances, juggling Gran's illness, the logistics of family flying in from overseas, and now this. To be hit with that level of entitlement left her feeling crushed. The rest of us reassured her she'd done the right thing. The organ wasn't hers, and we'd given the owner months of warnings. It was clear the organ owner had just been dodging responsibility. Forcing the return was the only way forward. Still, the fallout was real. Aunt and organ's owner's friendship never really recovered. Aunt has been hurt too deeply by the unfairness of it all, and honestly, none of us blamed her. On the bright side, the incident gave us one small silver lining in the middle of everything: gallows humor. My dad, ever quick with a pun, dubbed my husband's cousin and brother-in-law the organ donors. After everything, we needed that laugh. Looking back, I'm convinced organ owner was playing a game the whole time, hoping we'd just keep storing her organ indefinitely. But in the end, Gran needed that space far more than she needed a dust-covered instrument. Returning it on our terms wasn't just the practical choice, it was the only choice. Bravo! The only thing I would have done differently would be to drop the damn thing in the middle of the driveway or on the front porch, preferably with just the right amount of space to get out, but close enough to the door to make it really effing difficult. And our second story. My department said I was too proactive. This story happened a few years ago while employed as a police officer in a small, rural 15-man department. Since being a cop, I've never had a strong desire to write tickets. Typically, my limit was 15 miles per hour over before I would even consider issuing a citation, and that might result in a 5 over ticket, 10 over, and would get a warning. I tended to focus on impaired and or uninsured drivers. In the town was a lone stretch of roadway, a couple of miles, leading straight to the nearest interstate. Using this road might take a few minutes off your commute to home or work, depending on the time of day. The road had a couple of very old homes which had a comfortable distance from the roadway. Speed limit was 55, but not uncommon to see drivers going 15 over. We rarely got complaints. Unfortunately, one summer we had an auto pedestrian fatal accident. A driver was on their way to work in the early hours and hit a small child who wasn't supervised by their crappy parent. Speeding wasn't a factor in the tragedy. Following the tragedy, an order was given that we needed to seriously enforce speeding in the area. The next following weeks, I stop anyone going over the speed limit, even 1 mile per hour over. Now, I still keep to my normal method of issuing tickets, meaning your speed needs to be excessive to get a ticket. Most of these stops consisted of me informing them of the tragedy and the importance of us all driving more slowly. Most drivers are understanding and see what I'm trying to do. Except a few who file complaints for stopping cars for 1 mile per hour and inconveniencing them. I get told to tone back on my proactive enforcement and just be more visible. Great. Instead of looking for bigger issues or interacting with the community, they want me to just sit in my car. So for the next couple of nights, I park directly in front of City Hall with my steady burns on, when your lights are on but don't flash, for hours at a time. I make zero attempt at being a productive officer, and being a vigilant and dedicated employee, I even take photographs to send to my supervisor to let me know I'm being visible. Needless to say, I get talked to about my attitude and told to go back to being the normal. Side note, my sergeant later resigned shortly after I did, after some super shady crap happened in the department. Before he left, he gave me an award for the most literal officer ever. I still have it. Wow, that's quite a story. It's frustrating when you're just trying to do your job and people don't appreciate your efforts to keep the community safe. Good on you for being creative with your visibility, though. And our next story. Apparently owning hockey gear means I'm now the staff babysitter. This story's from a while back, so I can't remember the interaction perfectly, but it went something like this. Background. I'm a hockey player, and at the time I was playing for my varsity team. I just finished a game, and there was a free skate afterward. A few people were arriving, and players from both teams were leaving. Now, I occasionally ref Little League games at this rink, so there's a small chance the parent in this story recognized me from there. The story. I just finished undressing and was leaving the locker room with all my gear. I looked around and saw that my mom wasn't there to pick me up yet. No problem. I just set my stuff down in a corner and waited. That's when a woman, let's call her EM for entitled mom, approached me. EM, could you tie my son's skates for me, please? You're on your phone and you really should be working. Me. What? EM, I need help tying my son's skates. I was a bit confused, but I helped her tie her kid's skates since I had time and it's not unusual for someone to struggle with skate laces. Once I finished, I stood up and noticed my mom had arrived to take me home. I started to leave, but EM stepped in my way. EM, aren't you going to go out there and make sure my kid doesn't get hurt? He'll need help skating. Me. No. EM, you need to do your job or I'm going to talk to your manager. My family actually knows the manager and the owner, and like I mentioned, I did occasionally ref there. Me. I don't actually work here, ma'am. EM, then why do you have all that fancy skating equipment if you don't work here? Me. That's my hockey gear. I play hockey. At this point, my mom walked over to see what was going on. Mom, is everything okay over here? EM, this kid is being very rude and refusing to do his job. Mom, my son doesn't work here, and we have to get going. With that, my mom grabbed my arm and pulled me away. I quickly grabbed my stuff, and we got out of there before things escalated. Later, we heard from the manager that someone had come in to complain about me. My parents explained what really happened, and the situation blew over. It's amazing how some people seem to think their kid's everyone else's responsibility but their own. You know who went with me to make sure I didn't get hurt skating when I was too small to tie my own skates? My mom. My mom went with me. It's called parenting. And our last story. Karen tried to ruin a disabled woman's life over a milkshake. My stepmom's one of the kindest, strongest women you could ever meet. Before she ever became part of our family, she had already survived raising 2 kids on her own and beating breast cancer. Just when life started to look a little brighter, tragedy struck again. Her foot was crushed in a forklift accident at work. That accident left her permanently disabled. She can't work paycheck jobs anymore, and the injury also wrecked her back because of a botched surgery. She's been through hell, yet she still radiates positivity. She organizes charity events, makes blankets for the homeless, babysits neighbors' kids for free. Everyone in our community knows her, and everyone loves her. Despite her disability, my stepmom refuses to let it define her. She goes swimming at the local gym to stay active. It's low impact and helps her manage her pain, and she's actually lost quite a bit of weight doing it. One afternoon after a swim, she decided to treat herself with a milkshake from a local diner. She pulled into the handicap spot, placed her order from the car, and sat waiting with her cane by her side and a big smile on her face. That's when she noticed someone lurking behind the bushes near the lot. A woman, let's call her Karen, was whispering into her phone. My stepmom leaned slightly to listen, and her stomach dropped. Karen, yes, I'd like to report someone illegally parked in the handicap spot. Plate number XXXXX. My stepmom's blood ran cold. She snapped a photo of Karen right then and there. When she stepped out of the car, with her cane clearly visible, Karen saw her, panicked, and sprinted away like she just robbed a bank. Yes, she literally ran from a disabled woman with a cane. My stepmother thought it was ridiculous, but shrugged it off. She knew she had a handicap placard, and the DMV would sort out a false report easily. She enjoyed her milkshake and went home. She was wrong. By the time she got back, she had voicemails and calls from multiple agencies. Someone, clearly pulling strings, was pushing an investigation into disability fraud. Her car, her benefits, her very ability to support herself were suddenly under review. When my dad came home from work, he's a correctional officer at a women's prison, he found her surrounded by stacks of medical files and insurance paperwork, tears streaming down her face. She'd already started compiling proof of her disability. Dad, what's going on, sweetheart? Stepmom, sobbing, they're saying I'm a fraud, that I don't deserve my benefits, that I'm not handicapped enough. My dad rarely loses his cool, but that night, he saw red. The only evidence they had of this concerned citizen was the photo my stepmom had taken of Karen. My dad took that photo, wrote a long, heartfelt post on Facebook about his wife's struggles and resilience, and explained what this woman had tried to do. Within hours, it went viral in our town. Everyone who knew my stepmom rallied to her defense. People started identifying Karen. Friends, neighbors, even people from her own church called her out. At first, my dad figured that was enough. Karen would face some embarrassment, and maybe she'd think twice before weaponizing the system against someone disabled. But then things escalated. 2 days later, while my dad was at work, a sheriff showed up at the prison asking for him. Weird enough, this wasn't even in our town's jurisdiction. Turns out Karen's husband was the sheriff. Instead of handling it professionally, this man stormed into my dad's office and started screaming, "Sheriff, do you have any idea what you've done to my family? My wife lost her job. We're getting death threats." Dad, maybe she shouldn't have tried to ruin my wife's life. Sheriff, this is your fault. You slandered her. Dad, all I did was tell the truth. The sheriff then grabbed my dad by the shirt and hissed, "I'm gonna have you arrested for assault. You'll rot in this prison." My dad just smiled that dangerous correctional officer smile and said, "I look forward to seeing your wife in here." The sheriff lost it. He punched my dad square in the face. Dad didn't swing back, he just laughed. That punch was the beginning of the end. My dad pressed charges for assault and harassment. Before the trial even began, the sheriff retired early without benefits. The department was more than happy to see him go. Meanwhile, the community fallout for Karen was brutal. She was excommunicated from her church, their car was stolen, and later found vandalized with graffiti mocking her. She lost her job. When my dad eventually dropped the charges because he had to balance work, his wife's medical needs, and court, he still felt satisfied. The sheriff had lost his career, Karen had lost her reputation, and both of them were ostracized. Months later, we found out the reason everything escalated so quickly after Karen's report. She had used her husband's position as sheriff to pull strings. Those calls to agencies, those threats about disability fraud, they weren't random. She weaponized his badge. But it didn't matter. When my dad later checked their Facebook profiles, the fallout was complete. The sheriff had disappeared offline. Karen was divorced, broke, and selling sketchy miracle products online. She even posted a bizarre apology, saying she had only reported my stepmom because she looked too happy to be disabled. because apparently disabled people aren't allowed to smile. These days, my stepmom still swims, still volunteers, still makes the world brighter for the people. The best part's how small and petty the spark was, a milkshake. One woman so bitter that she couldn't stand the sight of joy, and it cost her everything. That's not just karma, that's karma with sprinkles on top. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.